Bobby, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Owen.
I'm here with
Good
Bobby
to meet
Lee,
you.
co-founder of BTCC. We're going to talk a little bit about your company that you've now recently sold, as well as some of your maybe predictions for the market. First of all, BTCC, let's talk about the idea behind it and what you were trying to do with the project there.
Sure. So BTCC started as BTCChina as the very first Bitcoin exchange in China. It was launched in 2011, so 8 years ago. It's been a while, and started as the very first Bitcoin exchange. Back then, when it launched, Bitcoin was barely in just a few dollars a Bitcoin. I think like $8 or $12 a Bitcoin, and it's come along quite a bit. And then later in 2015, we rebranded as BTCC. And then early last year, a little bit over a year ago, I sold the company. It's been acquired by a Hong Kong investment firm. Okay. So unfortunately, I don't run it anymore.
Right.
But it was a good few years that I was involved in the industry. A lot of great memories. And of course, we also face a lot of challenges running the business in China.
That's exactly what I wanted to get to.
Yeah,
China,
please.
quite an interesting space for crypto and blockchain development. A leader, but at the same time, sort of very conservative, very constrictive almost. Please, if you could have some thoughts on the climate there in China.
Yeah, so China has always been a very special place because people in China are very savvy. They're investors, right? People at least in the US, not many people invest. They're literally spending every last penny of their paycheck. Whereas in China, there's a culture of savings. So people save money from their monthly paycheck, from their salary, from their earnings, and then they would make investments, not just in real estate, but also in stocks, but also in gold and precious metals, and even also in foreign currencies. It's very common for typical Chinese people to have gold, to have foreign currency investments. So as a climate, I think Bitcoin had a special place for the Chinese people, which is why I started BTCChina many years ago. And it's proven China and the rest of Asia has a great appetite for cryptocurrency. So it's really great to see that Asia has played a strong role in the growth, in the accumulation and holdership of cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and so on. But lately, of course, the government, on the other hand, is very, very strict. It's run like a totalitarian country in terms of wanting to control many aspects of society, of everyone's daily lives. And even though Bitcoin is decentralized, there's no way to really extinguish it. But the Chinese government has a perspective that they want to control what people can and cannot do with it. And they want to limit people's ability to purchase or sell Bitcoins through exchanges.
Right.
So the law, of course, requires companies operating exchanges to have an exchange license. And we never had one. We never were able to apply for one or grant one. So in the end, in 2017, we had to announce that we had to close the exchange voluntarily to comply with the Chinese laws.
The regulations.
Yeah. So we closed our exchange, the BTCChina site, in I think it was in September 2017.
Okay.
But today, 2 years on, there's still a lot of underground activity. There are people.
A lot of peer-to-peer trading.
A lot of peer-to-peer. I mean, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in China. So even, let's say you as an individual, you could decide to make it your informal business to help people buy and sell Bitcoin.
Okay.
So let's say I'm a consumer, I want to buy Bitcoin from you. I would reach out to you through recommendation, and I say, hey, Owen, I hear that I could buy some Bitcoin from you. Can I buy $1,000 or $10,000 worth of Bitcoin? And then you would give me your personal bank account, and I would send money to it. And I would trust you based on your past reputation. And then once I've sent you the money, then you would send the Bitcoins to my wallet address. So there's a lot of that activity. But you're not registered as a company per se, but you're just running out of your own family sort of a home or something.
A little more underground.
Yeah, it's underground. It's not a licensed activity. It can be considered, we don't know what the formalities are, but today, you don't have to get a license to do that, so to speak.
And even though it's underground and quite peer-to-peer, I think we still see the impact of this. It's a large-scale operation, even though it's sort of clandestine. Is that right?
It's a large-scale operation. There's millions and millions of dollars going through the system just for people buying and selling. Because what's interesting is the government and the financial institution, the banks, can see the fact that I've sent you $1,000 because that's in the banking system. But what they don't know is, why did I send you $1,000? They can ask me, they can ask you. We could tell them it's for services rendered, for a gift, for a loan, or for the purchase of cryptocurrency. We can explain it however we want. But the reality is, maybe I gave you the money to buy Bitcoin. The problem with that reality is the action of buying the Bitcoin, the you sending me the Bitcoin, there's no tangible evidence and other than what you and I say. So there might be a chat record, there might be a verbal agreement or a verbal acknowledgement, but there is no way to actually verifiably prove that the transaction was for Bitcoin. So that's the double-sided sword. On the one hand, we would like to do this. On the other hand, it's very hard for governments to track that down or to because there's no physical evidence. There's no paper trail, but there is electronic trail on the blockchain. There's a confirmation, but there's no identity tied to it. There's plausible deniability. Oh, that's not my address. You can say, oh, that's not your address. So that's the issue, right? So it's both plus and minus in the sense that this is why Bitcoin is empowerment. Bitcoin was really empowerment to allow people to move their funds freely. But at the same time, governments don't like it because we're eating from their business, which is their main business of controlling and assessing fees and toll charges on people's movement of money. So it's going to be a tug of war in the coming years.
Absolutely. And what do you see in the next, let's say, a couple of years? Do you see, I mean, this has already been pushed underground. Do you see it being pushed even further?
What's happened is in China, we're already seeing evidence of this. The banks are cracking down on the transfer of fiat currency for the purpose of digital currency purchases and sales. So if I send you $1,000, let's say in Chinese renminbi, whatever the equivalent is, that is not an illegal activity. We're free to, I can give you a gift. I could buy you a bag of fruits. I could send you $1,000 as a gift. There may be tax implications or consequences. You may have to declare income and so on and so forth. But that action is not illegal by itself. But however, the government in China is now forcing banks to outlaw, to deny that transaction. So if they catch the fact that you, as a random person, is getting all these $1,000 payments from a whole group of strangers, and they ask you on the phone, why are you getting this money? If you don't give them an acceptable answer that conforms to what their worldview is, the banks,
proof of source or something like this,
then you might be on the blacklist and your account might be closed. Your account might be frozen. And that's a very, very scary precedent. I've seen a lot of people that's had that happen to. And it goes on. So on the hand, that's bad on the one hand. But on the other hand, it actually shows the resiliency of cryptocurrency, the proof that cryptocurrency is better than fiat money, because with fiat money, they can arbitrarily censor you, close down your bank accounts. They might not haul you to jail, but they'll close your bank accounts and freeze your money, and that's pretty bad. You know what I'm saying? So I think the future is definitely with cryptocurrency, where you can have money however you want, use it however you want, whereas criminal activity should be caught and captured and punished for the criminal activity itself and not for the movement of the money. So I'm very much in favor of the separation of crime and money. The separation of crime and money. Whereas today, governments around the world are sort of mixing the two together.
They're treating it as if it's the same thing.
I think it's very different.
Absolutely. Very interesting. And now if we could move a little bit more generally to the crypto markets, you've sort of become famous for your predictions about valuation and that kind of thing. What do you see some trends on the horizon, and what do you think 2020, what are we going to see? Some numbers
the long-term trend is I think Bitcoin value will go up a lot more. I think the 20-year price will definitely reach and exceed gold. So gold's value is $8 trillion. Bitcoin is just about 100 billion. So we're talking about at least going up past $500,000 per Bitcoin, $500,000 US per Bitcoin. I think that's very achievable in a 10, 20-year time frame. But many people, we all have short attention span. We all have short investment horizons. But I'm holding on and investing in Bitcoin for the long term, for 10, 20-year time frame. Have I sold some? Yes, I've sold some small amounts, but I'm still holding my Bitcoin position, thinking that it's going to go up a lot in the coming years. And I think if people have that mindset, I think this is something that they can consider investing in. So I can't give investment advice.
Of course,
but in the near term, in terms of price movements, I think in 1 year's time, May of 2020, we will have and see the third block halving, where the block reward goes from 12.5 down to 6.25. And that's going to be very significant. It's going to put a squeeze on the supply and the new supply of Bitcoin. On a daily basis, it will just be mining just 900 Bitcoins per day. So today it's mining at 1,800 Bitcoins a day of new supply. So in just a year's time, that will drop down to 900 Bitcoins a day. That means every day there's only 900 Bitcoins coming out to the world, roughly on average. that's a very small amount.
Yeah.
And if there's millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars going into the ecosystem on a
sure.
daily basis,
Yep.
you can imagine, you do the math. It could easily blow past the last high.
Absolutely.
Whether it's next year or 2 years from now.
But either way, that squeeze that's going to push up or going to add some more
so.
buying pressure.
I think so.
For sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, is there anything on the horizon, maybe on the technological side of things, that you're especially looking forward to in the next months?
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to greater adoption of Lightning.
Yeah.
For Bitcoin, I hope that takes off. I think, but it's a challenging. It's a chicken and egg. People have to have Lightning wallets,
Right.
Lightning nodes to send Lightning or receive Lightning. But we'll see if it works out. I'm crossing my fingers. There's a lot of movement in Bitcoin Cash as well, so I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that. There's a lot of good development on that. I support both Bitcoin BTC and Bitcoin Cash, and I'm also very open-minded about Bitcoin SV.
Okay.
And what else? In terms of adoption, so I hope that the industry will do more for adoption to allow more people to come into the ecosystem.
Right.
I predict the world only has about 20 million people today in the world who actually own Bitcoin. 5, 10, 20 million people who own Bitcoin. So that's a really small percentage of the total population. I hope that one day that becomes a much higher number, much higher percentage.
Let's hope so. Now, you mentioned quickly Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV. Do you have a comment on the Craig Wright situation at all?
I try to stay away from the politics of it. I think Craig Wright, he's very, very smart, a true genius, but also he's been perceived to be socially challenging, in terms of people accepting him and all that stuff. So he's controversial for sure. I think in terms of who might have the access to the private keys of the Satoshi coins, I think, as a betting person, I think he's the most likely person on this planet that I know today who might have access to the private keys held by Satoshi. In fact, I spoke with John Matonis yesterday. John was famous for being the first person where Craig went out to prove to John that Craig was able to sign using the Satoshi private keys the first 9 blocks in the Bitcoin blockchain, from the Genesis block to block number 9. So that's quite impressive. Assuming that John, obviously John is a trustworthy person, John Matonis. I trust and believe him, and it's quite significant that Craig Wright was able to do that in private for John, and also for Gavin later on. So we'll see. We'll see one day if Craig Wright comes out to publicly show that he's able to sign messages using the private keys of Satoshi. That'll be great.
Perfect. Hey, Bobby, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you.
Thank you, Owen.
Look forward to seeing you down in Switzerland next time you're there. Huh?
Great. Thank you.